Alright y'all, the mods I told you about in the last video we're in. This is the loaded chamber indicator. It will not interfere with the extraction or the ejection of the round. Makes it nice and smooth. Also, the hammer bushing. It'll replace the hammer bushing and the magazine disconnect. And this right here, this is Tack Driver. Shoot and Share Today by Taming. And you show the firearm in the distance. I'm going to send this to Eric because he's shooting a silver coin at 1,000 yards. Can't wait for that video. But he'll be able to write this down and share it with Taming. Alright y'all, this is a video that's been a long time coming, and it's a video I hope will help just a few of you that have suffered like I have on disassembly and the assembly of the Mark IIIs, Mark II Ruger pistols. Some of you probably own this and have never taken it apart because of the horror stories. Well, I'm living testimony to the horror stories. I have beat these guns half to death. Not this one, but the Hunter. I have beat it to death. Had my wife's hands in here holding parts while I took a punch and banged on parts and wailed on this thing. Here's the hammers to prove it. You see those dents in the back of that hammer? That's from the back of the bolt. I'll beat the front, slap off this one. You know, you reach a point where you just don't care anymore. And then you end up taking a bag full of parts to the gunsmith. But there is absolutely nothing to taking this gun apart and putting it back together again. All of the problems, 99.9% of the problems that you're going to have with this gun is caused by this right here. This is the hammer. This is the hammer strut. It is pinned to the hammer and it just dangles there. Now the magazine disconnect on this one has been taken out and replaced with a bushing. I also replaced, I take the magazine disconnect out of all of mine, and this is the magazine disconnect. Okay, it's a bushing and a couple of other little oddball parts, a spring. Absolutely nothing to take it out. I have horrible videos showing it. There's some good videos out there. I took this one out and reinstalled a tandem cross bushing, and it took 4 minutes from start to finish. Nothing to it, and if I ever get another one of these, I'll try and make another video show you just how easy it is. But all of the problems that you encounter with this pistol is totally dependent upon the position of the hammer and its attached hammer strut. All of them. And it all amounts to, is the hammer sticking up or is the hammer laying down? One of the two places. And they complicate it by this: put the magazine in, take the magazine out. That thing flies out of there, by the way, when you get the magazine disconnect out. But for the purposes of this video, you need to know that the magazine disconnect is out of this thing. because I will not be putting the magazine in and taking the magazine out. This gun is not loaded, by the way. It is empty. The only reason why they want you to see, they don't tell you in the instructions, the only reason why they want you to put the magazine in and take the magazine out is so that you can pull the trigger. That's the only reason they have you do that. And they tell you to point it in the safe direction and pull the trigger. When I pull that trigger, this hammer strut, okay, this little dangly piece, it normally resides down inside this mainspring housing. When you pull that trigger, the mainspring located in here pushes up with a lot of force on that hammer strut, and since it's attached to the hammer, it shoves that hammer forward. Under great pressure, it strikes the firing pin located in the back of the bolt, and the gun goes off. And there's a myriad of problems that you can run into when you're handling this, because once that happens, if you continue to move the gun around, that hammer can come back down a little bit, come back all the way down, and then you end up with situations where you don't know what's transpired in there, and the gun is locked up and it's not acting right, and you can't do a damn thing with it. Let me give you an example. You took the gun apart, you put it back together again, and you think, thank God that's over with, I'll never do it again. And you go to charge the weapon, it won't charge. It won't charge because the hammer is not positioned properly. It's not in the right place. And the hammer strut is blocking, and the hammer is up. It's blocking that bolt from coming back. Let's continue on. There's an easy fix for all of that. Just remember, the hammer has to be up or the hammer has to be down. The next thing is removing this, the bolt stop, taking it out of the gun. They are tight, but you can take a wooden dowel or a brass punch and just tap that thing, and this thing will fall straight out. Okay? Or you can take it like I do and just fight it out of there like that. Okay? That hammer strut, when you go to close this weapon up and the hammer is laying in its proper position, that hammer strut falls in this little channel right here. I apologize for the shaking. That's my trademark. But it falls in here and it rides on that little round spot. When you close this up, it's forced down in there and it compresses the mainspring. Okay? That's what makes the gun work. Now let me show you another problem. You go to take the bolt out, well, now it wants to come out. What I was trying to do, you see the bolt in there? You see it standing up? You'll never get this bolt back in there with it standing up. Okay? In order to get it back down in there, I'm not going to take the barrel off. To take the barrel off, you just smack it back here with a mallet. Once it's been used, you can just push it off. But it'll never go back in there with the hammer up. And you have to put the hammer down. Now, I just did it because I don't have to put the magazine in there. I pull the trigger and it just falls back down. Attached to that is that little strut. I don't know if you can see it, but that little strut is attached to there. This is the recoil spring. See, this bolt's got a slot in it. That's where this bolt stop rides. Right in there. Okay? But on the back of that thing, there is a little stirrup. That's another problem area. Let's put this gun back together again. Now, when you do that, you want to have the slide stop down because it can interfere with the bolt going back in. But right now, the hammer is down. And I know it's down because that little strut is laying there. I've seen people paint that strut orange, white, red. You don't have to do that. It's always going to be there because it's attached to the hammer. It can't go anywhere. And it's either going to be down or it's going to be up if the hammer is up. Now we're going to put this thing back in there. Look, if I was cool, calm, and collected, this would go right in there. The problem is when you go to put this gun back together again, you see that? That little stirrup's blocking the way. And all you do is take a tool, a pencil, anything, and just shove it up out of your way. You want that hole to be as straight as possible. I just rolled all over my pistol. Okay, you want that hole to be as straight as possible because it is a tight fit, but it'll go in there. See it sticking up? That's the way you want it. You want it sticking all the way through there. And you just muscle it through there, but you got to make sure that that little stirrup is out of the way. Now the other problem is when you go to close this thing, watch the top of that bolt stop. See it retracting down in there? And you think you don't have the barrel on far enough or some other problem. That's not it at all. The hammer is not in the right place. You get the hammer out of the way and it will close. I just raised the hammer up and it'll close up. You should have some spring in this. See the springiness in there? This is going to work perfectly. Okay? If you don't have that springiness in there, now, you're never going to get this up with the gun cocked. You have got to release it. The hammer strut comes up out of the mainspring housing with the hammer. When the hammer goes forward, it pulls it up out of there. Sometimes this thing will lock up. this mainspring housing. You can't get it up and you can't get it down. It's just because the hammer's in the wrong place. It's got to be up or it has to be down. And of course, if you hadn't taken your magazine disconnect out, you're constantly having to shove this thing in there and pull, just to pull the trigger. Okay? There's the mainspring. I can see it. I don't know if you can see it. Right there. There's a little spring down in there. But you're constantly having to put the magazine in, take the magazine out, but you're only doing that so that you can pull the trigger. Now you see the way this just flops down in there? I can't charge this weapon right now. It will not charge because the hammer is in the way. I wish this thing would lock up. I can get it to lock up maybe. No, I wanted it to lock up where it won't go in and it won't go out. All you have to do is just move the hammer. There it is. See it? I can't open it. The hammer is laying down, but it's laying down at the wrong time. Put the hammer forward, it'll open right up. I pulled the trigger and gravity took the hammer back up. This, when you start to close it, okay, now you want to reposition by pulling the trigger and letting the hammer down and letting that hammer strut dangle to where it will go in that little channel I showed you, and see the spring is back in this gun. There it is. The purpose of this is to, I can take this thing apart blindfolded and put it back together again just based on feeling the parts. But any problem you have on assembly or disassembly of this weapon is because the hammer, and consequently the hammer strut, is not in the right position. And it can only be in two positions. It's either going to be up and the hammer strut up out of the mainspring housing, or it's going to be down, which forces the hammer strut back down into the mainspring housing. That's the only two places it can be, and it's what causes all the problems when you go to take this thing apart. That and the instructions not telling you why you're putting this magazine in there. You're putting the magazine in there in order to pull the trigger. You have to pull the trigger to reposition the hammer, unless you've got the magazine disconnect out, and I'll make another video if I ever get another one of these to show you how to do that. It's a very simple process. It takes about 4 minutes, but you do have to be conscious of the fact that the slide stop and its detent can fall out, and the safety and its detent can fall out. But all of your problems, and it's the point that I want to drive home, all of your problems with this pistol on assembly and reassembly is because the hammer is not in the right place. So if you're struggling and it's locked up at some point, either put the hammer up like I just did, or lay the hammer back down. Now, if your magazine disconnect is in there, you may have to hit this, tap it a little bit to get the hammer to lay down, or you may have to tap it back here to get it to stand up. But that hammer strut and the hammer is what causes all of the problems. And this putting the magazine in, taking the magazine out, it confuses the hell out of most people. It's too much to remember when to do it and how to do it. If it's not acting right, it's because the hammer's in the wrong place, and it can only be two places, up or down. I've even seen people drill this hole out. The hole is not the problem. That little stirrup on the back of the recoil rod is the problem. You just take I had a tool here, a little pick. You just take something and kind of push it out of the way and then force it, your bolt stop on up in there. But that's all of your problems with a Mark III, Mark II. The Mark II has a little pin that goes across. You kind of stay out of the way of it. But all your problems are right here. And if you experience problems, the hammer's not in the right place. Put it up or put it down. I hope that helps somebody. I watched every video on YouTube when I was having problems with these, and I gleaned a little bit from each one. But when you put it in a pot and you boil it down, it's because the hammer's not in the right place. And if you're struggling and it's locked up, it won't close, whatever the problem is, just reposition the hammer. If it's down, put it up. If it's up, put it down. And you do that by pulling the trigger. This will make the hammer stand up. This makes the hammer lay down. That's it. It takes care of all your problems. I hope it helps somebody. I appreciate you watching. Catch you later. Bye.